Right,
Oh,
everybody. Hello and welcome to A Paycheck Away with your host, Salaam Bhatti. That's me. And today we are joined I was never good with prepositions. Joining us today is Elaine Walters, who is running for the House of Delegates seat out of District number 68 right here in Virginia. And that election is just about 40 days away as all eyes are on Virginia. So that's why this series is called All Eyes Are on Virginia, because truly everybody's looking to Virginia for that hope so that we can see the change that we need to see to really help carry us through to the midterms next year. And I'm so excited. I got to meet Elaine last week in Gloucester County, and she's just a breath of fresh air. And I guess it's because she's also a marine biologist. So she's really good at being environmentally just green. So, Elaine, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy campaign to join us here.
thank you. This is the first time I've been on a podcast, so I'm really excited.
All right. Well, we're going to set the bar really high, which could be, I don't know. We'll do our best. So, Elaine, I guess the first question is you are Gen Z and you're running for a statewide office. Tell us what made you want to run.
Well, kind of at my core, I've always wanted to make a difference. And what really the simplest catalyst is I was tired of waiting for change and I decided to make some. Um, that's the super short answer. There's a little bit of a kind of longer, funnier story, if you guys want that.
I
But
want it. I want it.
okay, so I decided to run in the month of February. So I was watching on TV all of these inspiring documentaries about particularly John Lewis, but all of the great civil rights leaders. And I went to dinner with my mom and her friends, and I just expressed to them this want to make a difference because I'd seen all these stories of people who saw something wrong in the world and they went and they did something about it. And my mom's friends are very well connected and very kind. And the next day, I got a call from somebody saying, "Hey, do you want to run for House of Delegates?" And my first answer was like, "Absolutely not. I don't want to do that. I'm an introvert. I am a marine biologist. I don't know how to do that." And here I am.
Wow. Oh my, the rest is history.
Yeah.
What has been some of your takeaways? Like, what are some highlights from the campaign so far? You said you're an introvert as you've had to knock on doors, go to events, handshakes galore. Like, what are your takeaways well, rather, what are your highlights from the campaign so far?
Well, one of my takeaways is that I might not actually be an introvert. Um, but definitely the high have been people. Um, there have been just the most interesting, unique people, and I go and knock on their door, and they give me hope, they give me new insight, um, and sometimes even the really challenging conversations where I can tell that we just have fundamentally different philosophies. I feel like both parties, both myself and the person I'm canvassing or speaking with, end up with a better understanding of our community and how ultimately we want the same things. It's just how we go about it is slightly different.
hmm Now, speaking of hard things, one of the things that has come out of the news over the past few days is this 27 um, our campaign for the 27 candidates in Virginia who aren't getting financial support from the party. So tell the viewers a little bit about what's going on there.
So, if I'm being honest, I have been really focusing on canvassing and being on the doors. So, I haven't had much time to give that a lot of deep thought. My goal is for the next, there's 40, I believe 43 days until the election. Goal is to knock at least 30 doors every day until then. I'm grateful for the money that's coming in from this 27 pack, obviously. And I am overall just a little bit disappointed with how much money controls how seriously you're taken in politics. Um, I think the support the support should go to candidates who are going to do something good for their voters and for their district. And it shouldn't necessarily be dictated by how competitive the race is, because having more money shouldn't make you more competitive.
I
Being receptive to people is what should do that.
I feel like we have to enter this strategy of we need to invest in races, all races, whichever race is about moving needles. You know, it's if you think
Mhm.
you just invest when the time is right to flip, then you could be waiting forever. But what Republicans have done masterfully is invest in races that they lose, but it's never a loss because they move the needle. And then all of a sudden, when that district flips,
Mhm.
people are like, "Oh my god, what happened?" Well, it took years. It took years of consistent investment to flip that thing. And so what we're seeing, like, I've been to Lancaster County a couple weeks ago, and I was talking with people who have been in that district for decades, Democrats who have been in the district for decades. And they said that when they moved there, they were the only Democrats. But slowly but surely, now you have a room of like 250 Democrats. And it's like, had there been a focused investment, it could have actually happened a lot sooner. So it's like, what are we really doing if we're not really thinking strategically or we're only thinking in 2-year increments? We really need to think about the long haul. So for the viewers who are unfamiliar with the 27 pack, Charles Gaba and Dr. Fergie Jr. have created this Act Blue tandem fundraising page. And if anybody's got access to it, or Ms. Walters, if you want to paste it into the chat, it's a way for people to donate equally or customize amounts to 27 delegates or 27 candidates in Virginia's House of Delegates race. And I say that these 27 are probably the most courageous candidates in the entire country because they chose to run months ago. And then after what has happened in the last week following Charlie Kirk's murder, um, these people to remind you, they're running in heavily Republican areas where people are being radicalized following this murder. Not everybody, but enough people, one, it could be just one, that their lives are in danger. And so they are the front line of protecting democracy, and they're doing it with little to no support from the state party. And so this pack was created to I'm sorry, this Act Blue link was created to help fund them. And it's almost at $100,000, which is fascinating. And it's, thanks to donors from all across the country. And then ultimately the pressure that went on to those elected officials in Virginia. Mark Warner, the senator, U.S. senator, just donated $13,500. He is a multimillionaire. So that was probably 0.05% of his worth. But hey, everything counts. So this is what's happening. If somebody can paste that link, great. If not, we'll make sure we put it out. We're actually putting a blog together right now about it. So Elaine, that's coming. How do you feel about that support, like embracing you from across the country? Oh no, did we lose a little bit of internet connection? Elaine is coming in from.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. So Elaine, what does it feel like to be embraced by people from all over the country as you make this run?
It feels amazing, actually. It's a little bit surreal. I'm starting to get into the portion of campaigning where I am able to meet the people who have already voted for me, um, which was I don't know that I can describe how surreal and awesome that was. Um, but I'm really grateful for everything.
So tell us a little bit about your priorities. Just in case there's a lag here. So Elaine is in a rural part of Virginia where broadband access is an issue. So I'm assuming one of her priorities is going to be access to broadband. But Elaine, we would love to hear from you about your priorities.
Yeah, so definitely rural broadband
Yeah.
seems like a relevant one to lead with. I should have stayed at the library. Dang it. but obviously, I have a background in environmental science. I'm a marine biologist. I studied that at Old Dominion University, and I also studied sustainability and conservation. So making sure that our rivers are protected and that our coastlines are resilient, and that we're prepared for changing weather patterns and changing sea levels with our coastal rivers. Um, that's going to be a priority, including just making sure that our drinking water is safe, that our rivers are safe, that the oysters and the crabs and other staples of this area are protected, because a lot of people still rely on them for their livelihoods. So that's a priority. And another priority are the schools. I think it's really important that where a person is from or where a student is from shouldn't dictate the quality of education they get. Um, and that kind of ties back into the rural broadband, but it also ties into how we distribute school funding throughout the state.
When it comes to protecting the rivers, I read a report recently that said the Rappahannock River is an endangered river. And with the onslaught of data centers coming in and wanting to draw water from the Rappahannock, we're in serious trouble as we see so much residential building happening as well. So talk us through that. What can we see? What can we how can we solve this?
So with data centers, I think it's really important that the communities have control over that rather than a corporation. There's a couple things that can be done. There are waterless data centers that would reduce the need for them to be on rivers and to suck water out and potentially pollute it with heat and with other chemicals. And um, so that's one requirement that I feel like is important. That if new data centers are going to come in, they need to be waterless. It's also really important that the community has them sign something called a community benefit agreement. So that ensures that the company covers the rising cost of electric bills and any other expenses rather than the community.
Oh, so like for example, in Virginia, we all saw a 14% increase from Dominion Energy. There's people saying that it's due to us having to pay for the data centers energy usage. Yeah. What's the deal there?
So with the data centers, they take a lot of energy to run them, and so that is part of why the cost has gone up. But if a community signs that, if they kind of sign that agreement right off the bat, um, then the company coming in with the data center would be required to cover that cost. And it would be kind of like a contract with community of like, if you are going to come into our space and build, you have to cover this kind of expense or this it's kind of insurance, basically. And it goes, I would say, in with non-disclosure agreements. I don't think a data center should be allowed with like with a non-disclosure agreement. The community should be informed throughout the whole process.
Mm.
Uh,
Now, when you said you can have waterless data centers, now the water is what's keeping them cool. So
yes.
how does a waterless data center work? How does that stay cool?
So I don't actually know how waterless data centers work. I don't know the specifics. I do know the reason they are not as popularly put in is because they are more expensive to the company.
Ah, okay.
Shocking no one. So I'd have to get back to you on how they actually work. Um, but
That's awesome. And what I loved about your answer is you just saying, "I don't know." That's great. You don't
it,
got to know everything, and I think everybody hates it when politicians just like make up an answer just to sound like they're smart. So that authenticity is super awesome. So thanks for that, Elaine. Um,
thank you.
another
I don't. I,
I don't know if this is up your alley, but I was at a recent town hall with a delegate. He's a sitting delegate, and I asked him about, well, what's up with these the energy costs going up. And he pointed out the Virginia Clean Economy Act
Mhm.
from some years ago, and he said that be it's because of that act that our energy costs are going up because we don't have as reliable as energy due to, no longer having coal burning plants or fossil fuel plants or decommissioning them and trying to go into these hybrid or solar or wind energy, which are not as reliable. Do you know anything about that? Is that true?
So you could make that argument. You could also say that we are still using a lot of coal-powered plants in comparison to what we probably should be doing,
Mhm.
uh, from an environmental standpoint. Um, you could say that, but
Okay. All right. But there is, of course, other things that are, I don't want to say insidious, but things underpinning that, obviously there's a party that didn't like the VCEA. It starts with an R and ends with an S. Uh,
yeah.
there's also, a desire for corporations, for these Republicans to want to have more corporations involved that are, for some reason, I don't know why they want fossil fuels to be burning. Is it like the alpha male thing that they love? I don't know. But the diversity of having solar and wind and other different things all coming together to provide reliable energy, I just feel like that sounds a lot better and preserving our future instead of preserving profits. If anybody has a question for Elaine, who's coming out of the Gloucester County, right?
So I'm actually from Essex County. So it's at the very opposite end of my district. So my district's kind of shaped like this, and I'm up here, and Gloucester's down here.
All right. All right. So over it, if you have any questions for Elaine, feel free to plug them in the chat, and we'll be happy to raise them. What else, Elaine? You've talked about wanting to do something about broadband access to internet. What are some things that are possible in this space? Because it's really costly to build out all that infrastructure.
It is, and I know that in parts of my district, we are starting to actually see some results from some of the federal grants that were put in. I believe 2 years ago. We're starting to see with the you have to run the fiber optic cables before you can get the high speed internet, and we're starting to see some of those be put in. They're usually put in the ground, so like a little like ditch is dug and then they run the cable. Um, so some parts of my district have gotten it already.
Mhm.
Um, it would be a priority of mine to make sure we continue to install it, because there's been some setbacks in certain counties, including Essex, where no one's really sure why the kind of construction of the installation of the infrastructure has stopped. So that would be a priority, and also making sure that it is truly affordable for everyone. Um, because even if you have it, but if you have to pay an arm and a leg for it, it's not benefiting the people who need it the most, which is usually our students. Um,
With you mentioned federal funds. Are those federal funds still coming? We know Trump has been cutting a lot of funding, or is that money already been delivered?
so it was my understanding that the money has been delivered already. But I have not. Um, there are certain areas where the construction of things has stopped, and it seems like it might follow.
Yeah.
That the funds have been non forthcoming.
There's a big talk about rural healthcare. Our Congressman Rob Whitman, who voted for the big beautiful bill, which cut nearly $1 trillion from Medicaid and took about 155 billion from rural healthcare. He's going around talking about how, oh well, there's also a $50 billion investment into rural healthcare, but he never talks about the $155 billion cut from rural healthcare. So, what's the situation in Essex County? How are we doing when it comes to hospitals, medical care centers? Do those exist in that part of the state?
Yeah, so we have a couple hospitals in the district. We have one in Tappahannock, which is a part of VCU Health, and then we have the Walter Reed Hospital down by Gloucester. And those are both rural hospitals that are, they're at risk of closing, and that's going to be really bad. Because I believe like 1/3 of children in the district are on Medicaid and about 10% of seniors. Um, and that's kind of our most vulnerable populations who are going to need medical care right away, like fast. Um, but in addition to potentially losing that care, it's the hospitals and medical care facilities are the highest employers in the district. Um, so
A
it's
lot of
gonna
people.
it will be felt if anything happens to them.
So
Um,
that's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that hospitals in rural parts of the country and the Commonwealth here too are the largest employers. So when divisions shut down or entire hospitals shut down, all of a sudden a lot of people are without jobs. Now, other people might say, well, good thing we have a safety net. They can apply for SNAP and for Medicaid. But Republicans just pushed through the big, beautiful bill that added more work requirements and made things a lot more stricter for the states when it comes to seeing if they can waive work requirements in areas of high unemployment. So it became so strict that even if people lose their jobs at a hospital or a medical center, they may not be eligible for the safety net because they're not working because they can't find jobs in their area. So it's not a domino effect we're going to see. We're going to see a shockwave from a
yeah,
mass earthquake over the next year, and on top of health insurance premiums rising for everybody as well.
exactly. Because ultimately, if somebody needs medical care, they need medical care full stop. And if they can't pay for it, ends up that we pay for it. Um, so if people want to keep those taxes low, it actually makes sense to invest in these things. It's also important to note that some of our pharmacies in this area are we've seen a reduction in pharmacy choice essentially. So some of the smaller independently owned pharmacies have closed down, including actually the one by my opponent. He previously owned Tappahannock Pharmacy, which has closed, and then the Tappahannock Walgreens has shut down, and leaving the people of Essex with essentially just one place to get their prescriptions filled, which doesn't give a lot of leeway to find something cheaper.
Tell, tell me your opponent spoke out against the big, beautiful bill.
I cannot.
I mean, this is literally leopards eating their faces.
Yes.
Wow.
Now, I don't think my opponent is a bad guy. I just don't always agree with how he votes. Um,
The cognitive dissonance is phenomenal. So, are you seeing or are you hearing from Republicans or independents like how frustrated they are with the society as it is and them offering their support to you and voting for you?
it depends on the individual I'm speaking with. I have kind of the general sense that I'm getting from the doors is people are tired of how things are going, and they're ready for things to go better than they are. We're ready for state and local to be less partisan and more focused on getting things done. Um, it's that's kind of this like exhausted refrain that I get from everyone I speak with, which is we have many things that need to get done for the people of Virginia and for the United States. But I'm going to stick with Virginia because that's what I can handle right now.
Right.
Um, that isn't getting done because of a certain amount of infighting about things that aren't relevant to my constituents' daily lives. So
Right. Right. Y'all, we are talking with Elaine Walters. She is a candidate for HD 68 in Virginia. The election is coming up just in a matter of, it's weeks away now. So if you want to ask the question to one of the most courageous candidates in the country right now, feel free to plug away. And I say that I'm not speaking in hyperbole because she's running in the deep red area. There are elements of fanaticism that are popping up all across the country, especially in deep red areas after Charlie Kirk's murder, which, of course, any violence, whether it's political or non-political, we condemn and we abhor. And this is why we love the civil process of elections and dialogue and debate and podcasts as well. So it's really frightening, especially for the 27 candidates in Virginia's elections that are coming out of deep red areas. So we salute you, Elaine. Thank you. You're getting some hearts. That's awesome. Uh,
Thanks.
Anybody have any questions? I am watching and listening, says Haley Holmes. All
Oh,
right.
she helps me canvas.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. We got some support here. So when you said initially you thought you may have been an introvert, but it turns out you may be more of an ambivert even. And you're seeing so many people coalescing and building community around you, around your priorities, around the shared vision of the campaign. Win or lose, moving forward, how is this kind of like reinstilling your light in democracy?
So I think I would say that I have a solid community now. And it's not that I didn't have it before. It's just I didn't take advantage of it. I didn't, I was involved. I was part of my local Democratic committee on and off. And I was involved in college on and off. But I now know there's so many people in my area who are working on things, who are trying to make a difference. And I feel like I know how to go forward. Even if I'm not running a campaign, I know that there are things that need to be done and really right people to do it with, which helps a lot.
So for Gen Z folks that are watching, and also millennials as well, what advice do you have for them? Like, how can they get engaged or get started in this?
So I think there's a couple things. Depending on where you are, try to find your local Young Democrats. If you're in the Middle Peninsula, call me on November 5th because I would like to have a Young Democrats branch out here in the sticks. Um, but mostly, I would just say don't be intimidated. Go to the meeting if you see it on the internet and you're like, oh, well, they're meeting because we need more people. We need more energy. There are a lot of really amazing people who I have learned so much for, but they have been at this fight since before I was born, and they are tired, and they need people to be the boots on the ground because there's a lot of stuff I don't know, but I've got the energy to go do it once I know what to do. So I would say just kind of put yourself out there. If you see that there's a rally happening, go. You're going to meet so many people. It's going to be great. I promise.
It truly is. I had the opportunity of visiting the liberal women of Chesterfield County some weeks ago, and there were a lot of lovely older ladies who were writing postcards. And there, I was talking with one of the organizers there. She's like, "I'm in my 70s. Like, it's hard for me to get out there and canvas, but I'm going to canvas for you." And I'm like, "That's endearing." But like just like you said, we gotta take that torch from them and let them have a break. uh, I was an advocate during the first Trump administration, still am, but it's like so many of my older advocate friends, and including me, like we had not recovered from the first Trump administration. Like that's how horrific it was, and the fact that he came back for a second round was just, I mean, we were just shaken. And we all see why and understand why now. But it's great to see good people doing great things like Elaine Walters here in HD68 in Virginia. Elaine, the last question I like to always ask people in these interviews is, what is your favorite movie?
Oh, ooh, you've caught me off guard. So I really, really like this very old, obscure one called The Prisoner of Zenda. It's based off of book, and there's two versions. There's a 1953 and there's a 1937. And the 1937 version is better, even though it's in black and white, because there's a certain funny scene that is included in that version that is not included in the other version.
The Legend of Zenga.
Uh, the Prisoner of Zenda.
How do you spell that? How do you spell Zenda?
Zenda. It is one of those like old timey swashbuckling fencing movies,
Okay.
and the fencer for for a very long time. I've been a fencer since I was a little kid, and so it's like kind of that childhood favorite. And the main actor in the 1937 one is a Olympic fencer. So
that's cool. That's cool.
yeah.
Now, when you said you caught me off guard, that made me flash back to my favorite movie, The Lord of the Rings. And I say movie because it's one. It's not three. It's one.
Yeah.
And it's when Arwen comes up on Aragorn in the Fellowship, and she's like, "What's this? A ranger caught off his guard?" It's like, yeah, it's kind of flashback.
It's a good.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we head out?
I think just for everybody who might see this recording, who's listening now, things are tough. It's exhausting. The news seems all bad. But try to find your joy, use your voice, use your vote, and even just a little act of kindness, like, complimenting somebody's outfit in the grocery store, it really does go a long way.
It does. It really does. I love that. Love that. So Elaine Walters joining us during her campaign for delegate, running for delegate in HD 68 right here in Virginia. The election is just about 40 days away. I will be putting out a post about Elaine, about Jonas who's watching, about the 25 other candidates who are in the 27 and being in that Act Blue fundraiser where they almost got over $100,000 in donations from all over the country. And we're going to push for more donations from Virginians so that we can support what I like to say, or I like to call them, the bravest candidates in the country. It is very difficult times, but they're putting it all out there and making the sacrifice play. So the least you can do is support them with a few bucks. The link is in the chat if you haven't already donated. And if you're watching and you're not a subscriber, subscribe so you can get the post, be one of the first to get the post and donate through that. So thank you, Elaine. Thank you for taking time out of your campaign. And we're rooting for you. And we're going to be donating as well and showing up. And we're going to bring in people, and people are going to volunteer. They're going to canvass and hit those 30 doors a day.
Yeah, we'll get there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.